Hello everyone. In today's lecture, first we are going to talk about AAA. AAA is Cisco's platform for configuring three basic security functions. After that, we are going to talk about 802.1x basics, which I decide to describe you three different roles in it. And finally, we are going to compare Radius and TACAX Plus, which are our language of love. Let's jump in. AAA, which stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting, is Cisco's platform for configuring these three independent functions in a single, consistent, modular manner. Let's have a brief definition about these functions. Authentication. As we mentioned in the previous lecture, authentication provides the method of identifying users in different ways. What is authorization? Authorization provides the method for remote access control. What it means? It means that you could have different groups of users. For example, you could have IT users and human resource users. These two groups of users with authorization could have access to different resources in your network separately. For example, you could make the access for IT users for these servers, and you could provide to access these servers for human resource with authorization. And what is accounting? Accounting provides the method for collecting and sending security server information used for billing, auditing, and reporting. For example, when a user starts its session and when it ends it, and some sort of things like this. Now, let's have a review on 802.1x. 802.1x has another name, and it is port-based authentication. With port-based authentication, you could authenticate your PCs or users before they can connect to the network. Let's have a review on its process. First of all, you should have a software on your PC which is called supplicant. This supplicant could be OS built-in, or it could be a third-party software which you have to install on your PC, like Cisco AnyConnect. When the PC or the user tries to connect to the network, our network access device, or NAD, which could be a switch in a wired network or wireless LAN controller or wireless access point in wireless networks, as an authenticator, it stops the user and say, hey, stop. You should prove that who you are. For example, ask the user to enter its username and password. Okay, the user provides his username and password and deliver it to the NAT. And that says that, okay, I could not authenticate you directly. I should ask another person. And ask who? The authentication server. Authentication server could be an ISE of Cisco Identity Services Engine, or ACS Access Control Server of Cisco, which are the two products that we are going to talking about them in the future lectures. Okay, the switch asks the authentication server that some people provide these credentials. Are they valid for connecting to the network or not? And the server checks its database. The database could be inside the authentication server or could be in an external identity source like Active Directory of Microsoft or any other vendors. And finally, the server answers 2 thumbs up or 2 thumbs down to the switch, which means Yes, he is a valid user, or not, he is not a valid user. And if the user is valid, the switch allows the PC or the user to connect to the network. Okay, how these conversations take place, or with what protocol is done? The communication between supplicant and authenticator is done through a protocol which is called EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol. And the conversation which is done between the authenticator and authentication server is done through two protocols, Radius and TACACS+, which we are going to talk about them in the next slide. TACACS+. Okay, this is the whole conversation is done to allow this PC or user to connect to the network. For a brief history, the supplicant or the user asked the authenticator to connect or to allow him to connect to the network, and the authenticator passed the authentication information to the authentication server, and if the authentication server allows the user to do that, the switch or our NAT allows the supplicant or the user to connect to the network. This is the whole story. Let's compare Radius versus TACACS+. Radius, which stands for Remote Access Dial-In User Service, is an open standard protocol, so you could use it in a multi-vendor network. Radius uses UDP as a transport layer protocol with these port numbers for authentication and accounting. Radius only encrypts the passwords, not the whole data. On the other hand, TACACS+. TACACS, which stands for Terminal Access Controller Access Control System, was originally a Unix project, but Cisco made a special version of TACACS and called it TACACS+. So we say that TACACS+ is a Cisco proprietary protocol, and you could use it in a Cisco environment only. TACACS+ uses TCP port number 49 and could encrypt full payload of your data, not only the passwords. Although there are other differences between these two protocols, but these are brilliant ones in my mind. Let's wrap up. In this lecture, first we talked about AAA. And we saw that AAA is Cisco's architectural framework for configuring authentication, authorization, and accounting in a single, consistent, modular manner. After that, we have a brief review about 802.1x or port-based authentication process and different roles inside this. And finally, we compare Radius and TACACS+ in a view of 3 different parameters. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.